Proof. That's what women want. When it comes to your feelings for her, women require lots and lots of proof. Women are not romantic in love. Men are romantic in love. Women are practical in love. Wait a minute. If women are not romantic, then why do they require men to buy them jewelry, demand that they surprise them with candlelit dinners, bring them flowers, write them poetry, take them on luxury holidays? Isn't that all to satisfy some deep emotional yearning in their soul, to live a fairy tale romance, to satisfy some spiritual longing that is unique to women? No. That is not what is going on. That is a myth. That is a lie that women tell to men because it sounds so much better than actually admitting the truth about what's actually occurring. Okay, some quick background. Hopefully you've watched my channel enough to know that women are not romantic. Men are the romantic gender. Just ask yourself, who writes all the best love songs? Who actually plans romantic gestures for their girlfriend? It's always men, doing these things. Women might demand romantic gestures be done for them, but women don't actually do romance. It doesn't even really occur to them. If you ask most women who are in a relationship, what was the last romantic gesture that you planned for your boyfriend? Often you'll be met with a completely blank, surprised look. Like a lot of women, it doesn't even occur to them that this is something that they should do. They just expect to receive it. That's how aromantic women actually are. Now, I am not having a go at women here. That's not what's occurring. I might be fiercely critical of the myth of the female romantic, and I'm going to criticize any woman who continues to gaslight men by perpetuating this myth. But the fact that men are romantic and women are practical in love, that's fine. Once we acknowledge and accept reality, that's all good. There's no problem with that. That's just how evolution has created women to be. It makes sense, doesn't it? Like, for the majority of our evolution, romanticism was a luxury that we just couldn't afford to indulge in. Survival was tough. Women had to be practical in their love choices. If a woman has children, she's going to be extremely vulnerable. When she's breastfeeding an infant, she doesn't have time to build her own shelter, to go and collect her own food. She needs her male partner to do that for her, and she needs his protection. He's going to be able to ward off predators and men who would do her physical violence or try and take her without her consent. Always remember that evolution is only concerned with propagating genes into the next generation. And so the genes that end up becoming dominant in the gene pool are the ones that best aid survival. Like if you think of two women back in caveman days, one of them is really, really romantic. She doesn't really require anything practical from her husband, her male partner. She just wants him to recite poetry to her and to draw images of her on the cave wall. But her friend in the neighboring cave needs her husband to be really practical. She demands that he go and get firewood and he hunt animals so they can eat the meat and wear the fur, to keep them warm from the cold. Which one of these two women do you think is most likely to survive and therefore to have their genes passed on to the next generation? That's why it makes no sense to shame women for their practicality when it comes to mating and love. It's just biological. It's from evolution. It's why women pay so much attention to a man's wealth, to a man's status, because all of that goes to aiding in her survival. It makes sense that her instincts are crafted to prioritize that. Now, speaking of the instincts that women like to prioritize, we know that women like to date attractive men who look healthy. And a big part of that look is having healthy skin, which is why I'm excited to talk about the sponsor of today's video, Tiege Hanley. These guys create high quality skin products for men. I've been using them for a few months now and I'm really impressed. It's perfect for a guy like me who's pretty lazy, to be honest, when it comes to my appearance, because they've got these instructions and this routine and it makes it so easy. You've got your AM cream for the morning, you've got your exfoliating scrub for after your showers, you've got your daily face wash, and then in the evening, you use your PM cream. It's all sorted and explained for you. I'm probably gonna run out of the AM cream first because that seems to be the one that I'm using the most, but luckily for me, as a member of Tiege Hanley, I can add and remove things anytime that I want. I've just received their eye cream and their facial firming serum, and I'm excited to try those too. If you're a member of Tiege Hanley and you live inside the US, you even get free shipping. These guys really have taken all of the thinking out of it. It's just effortless, high quality skincare. And because Tiege Hanley are sponsoring this video, they're giving my audience a fantastic deal. If you click on the first link in the description box below, not only are you gonna get Tiege Hanley at the best possible price, but they're gonna throw in an additional gift as well. So click that link and get started for just $25. Okay, back to the video. We have established that women are practical in love. They want a man's resources because that's gonna aid her in her survival. But hold up. if that's the case, then wouldn't a woman just be satisfied with a man bringing home a paycheck? Wouldn't that be enough? As long as her needs and the needs of her children are taken care of, shouldn't that satisfy her requirements for love? Well, the answer to that is it used to. That used to be enough. Like back in the day, the definition of a good man was pretty simple. Just make sure you're providing for your family and don't hit your wife. That was basically all that was expected of you. Even fidelity was not always expected. Affairs on the side from the husband were often tolerated, so long as the husband didn't disgrace his wife by flouting his mistress in public. Over the decades, the expectations of men have risen so much, and I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. Like, I think that men should be more than just a wallet. He should also be a companion. But I do find it interesting just how many criteria men these days have to fulfill in order to be considered a good man. Like, yes, he needs to financially provide. That's a minimum, but he also has to be emotionally available, have equal responsibility with child raising and housework, etc., etc. Like, if you were to plot the expectations of men and women in relationships over the last, however many decades, what you would see is that the expectations for men have gone up and up and up, whereas at the same time, the expectations for women seem to have gone down and down and down. And these days, it can sometimes seem as though even making the suggestion that women should sacrifice something for the sake of their relationship, that's sexist, that's patriarchal. The man's the one who has to sacrifice. That's normal. Anyway, I digress. But if it's true that a woman's love is primarily practical, then why do women demand romantic gestures? Why do you hear women complain, he never buys me expensive gifts, he never surprises me, he never takes me out? If these gestures do not serve any practical utility, then why do women fixate on them with such intensity? Do they have this spiritual longing inside their soul, romance for romance's sake? Maybe some of them, but for the most part, no. All of that romanticism, it actually serves a practical purpose. There's a couple of different explanations for this, but the most generous one is that women demand romantic gestures because it demonstrates how much the man is willing to sacrifice for her, which in turn is proof of his commitment. If he spends thousands and thousands of dollars on some fancy, expensive necklace, that is going to be reassuring to her when she receives that, because it shows that she's not something frivolous to him. He wouldn't spend that amount of money unless he was actually committed to her, and that's reassuring. If he takes her on a week-long holiday to some fancy destination and he spends all of that time with her, again, that's proof of his commitment because he's forsaking his work, his other friends, his other opportunities in order to spend time with her. If he plans a surprise party, an anniversary dinner, if he takes the time to compose a love song, all of that time that he spent, trying to meet her needs and do something nice for her, that's all serving as proof of how much he's committed to this woman. I'm not judging. This is not an entirely irrational strategy to be used by women. Like, what men need to understand is that when a woman in her youth is dating a high quality man, the kind of man that lots of women would want to date, she's going to have as her baseline mood a certain level of anxiety because she is forsaking her best years for this man. And if he's a really high quality guy, then she knows in the back of her mind that he's got options, that at any point he could just trade her in for a newer, younger girl. He could just pursue one of his other options. And so she's freaking out like all the time, like, oh, here I am giving so much of myself to this guy. Is this going to go anywhere? Is this going to be a failed investment? Am I going to regret this? And so it makes sense that she wants constant reassurance, constant romantic gestures as continuous proof of his commitment to her. What she really needs is reassurance that her place by his side as his partner is not in jeopardy, that she is secure in her position. And so in a sense, all of that expensive jewelry that she is racking up, that's not proof of how romantic she is. It's the exact opposite. It's proof of how practical she is. It also serves another really important purpose, which is the proof of her desirability. Women crave reassurance that they are beautiful and that they are desirable. And that is especially true for women who are looks-based, whose self-esteem comes primarily from their appearance. Now, those women are just inherently insecure, just as a baseline, because as a default, they recognize inside themselves that their self-esteem has been built on shaky grounds. Like, their looks are going to fade. And for women, their looks fade pretty quickly. And so if she's no longer going to be beautiful, well, what then? What's she going to have left? The reason these women get so excited when they are the recipient of a romantic gesture is because it temporarily alleviates their anxiety and it reassures them of their own desirability. She thinks, wow, he wouldn't spend all this time, money, energy on me unless I was an extremely desirable woman. So when she's at the surprise party he planned for her and she's showing off the ring that he bought her, she is measuring her desirability against the price of those items. The memory of that surprise party and that piece of jewelry, that is something tangible that she can refer to psychologically anytime those insecurities pop up and she needs to calm them down. Now, as a man, this whole roller coaster sounds absolutely exhausting to me. Like, I would strongly recommend women do not build your self-esteem based on your appearance. That's not a good idea. Build it on something far more solid. Actually develop your intelligence, your creativity, become a person of strong moral character. That way you can actually brace against the storm of old age when it eventually comes and still feel good about yourself. Unfortunately, I don't think that many women are going to heed my advice. And in part, it's because being the recipient of romantic gifts and gestures is just too tempting, especially when they are used in competition with other women. This is something that we haven't talked about yet, but this is a major motivation why women are, demanding romantic gifts and gestures. Look what my husband bought me. Look where my husband is taking me on holiday, etc., etc., bragging to their girlfriends. Look how desirable I am. Look how much my man is willing to do for me. If this is all hitting a little bit too close to home, like you're dating a girl who constantly demands romantic gestures and you don't know how to deal with this, please reach out to me. Send me a message over Hey Hero. I'll send you a personalized video in response. But finally, I want to talk about the darkest motivation that women have for requiring romantic gestures, which is compensation. I don't know exactly when this occurred, but at some point, our perception of female value in the dating market just went bananas. Women felt like they were amazing and in demand and they were so valuable, and men started to feel like they were lucky to just have the smallest portion of a woman's time. That's not been good for men's self-esteem, to feel like they're so lucky just to be able to spend time with the opposite gender. And it also hasn't been good for women either, because they've lost that mindset of gender equality. Now, it often feels like, to women that they are doing a favor to a man by spending time with him. The world of sugar babies is the most obvious example of this. That's women who date men in exchange for like a weekly or a monthly allowance. The maths being, man does not equal woman, but man plus money equals woman. Unfortunately, it seems like this sugar baby, sugar daddy culture has gone quite mainstream. Lots of women now feel entitled to a man's resources if they are spending time with him, if they are, giving him the benefit of her company. So much so that a woman would actually feel cheated, like she's doing him some kind of unearned favor if she was to spend time with him and not receive anything material in return. When viewed through that lens, you could consider romantic gifts and gestures as a form of compensation that women require in order to spend time with men, in order to be a part of a man's life. That's the mystery solved. That's why she gets so angry at her man. If he's not constantly showering her with gifts and attention and gestures, she feels like she's getting used. It's a sad state of affairs when women are not viewing men as real people to form genuine connections with, but simply as resources to exploit. That's why I consider women who are too romantic, in the sense that she likes to receive lots and lots of romantic gifts. I actually think that's a red flag. Women like that should be avoided. A high quality woman is obviously going to appreciate whatever resources and nice gifts and gestures you bring into her life, but that's not her primary motivation for being with you. She actually wants to know you as a real person, and the pleasure of your company and your companionship, that's her top priority. I really don't think you should compromise on this. If you have to buy a woman's affection with too much romanticism, then she probably doesn't care that much about you. Hold out, try and find that high quality woman who really likes you for you. Here's an interesting question. Does growing up with sisters actually help with your understanding of female psychology? Is that going to help later on in the dating market? The answer is yes, definitely, but sometimes in ways that help, sometimes ways that harm. It sort of depends on what relationship you have with your sister. Anyway, it's a complex topic. It's the topic of my latest Patreon video. I go into all of the details. If you want to see it, please go and sign up on my Patreon. It's just a $5 a month subscription. You get instant access to a whole bunch of exclusive content. We have at least 150 videos over there now. You can see them all instantly. $5, great value, great community. Love to see you over there.